Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I have the privilege to interview Craig Berube. Craig, how we doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. You are. How's the weather there? You're in Philly, right?
Yeah, it's cold. We got snow, so we got snow on the ground, but it's fine. It's not that bad, but it's cold and snowy, and they're not. We don't get that much here, but once in a while they get some snow, and the weather. It's this time of year it's pretty cold. And normal weather for the winter time around Philly area.
Like we're on day 4 of 0 degrees here in St. Louis. It's been brutal.
Yeah, it's chilly there.
Very chilly.
They get cold weather for a bit there in St. Louis.
That's right. Not as cold as Philly, probably. Well, you are, like I said, Craig Berube. You played in the NHL from 1986 to 2003, 1,054 games to be exact, over 17 seasons. You were known as the enforcer, and you were also the former coach of the St. Louis Blues and the 2019 Stanley Cup champs. That was amazing. I'm sure we'll dive into that. But before we kind of dive into all this stuff, Craig, anything I just want to ask you, kind of what's made you the man you are today? I know it's a big question and pretty open, but there's always some details in there that I can't find in my research.
Yeah, I think just you got to be motivated for sure to become an NHL player, and you got to get some luck too along the way. I think that I guess when I went and played junior hockey, I realized there might be a future at some point, to move on to pro. I was never drafted, but my last year junior, I was signed by the Philadelphia Flyers as a free agent. At the end of my junior career, we're still playing. The Flyers came down and watched me. There was some interest in about 3 or 4 teams, and I chose to sign with the Flyers. I felt like the way I played and how I needed to play to turn pro and to be a pro player, that was a good fit at the time. Which it worked out well. But I think you got to have people in your corner. You got to have people that are pushing you in the right direction and to help you along the way. And I had that. I had a coach in junior that really helped me a lot and turned me into a good junior player and to push me to where I need to be pushed to. And I was always the type of guy that I accepted constructive criticism well. I accepted what I needed to do to become a better player. But again, you need some people in your corner to help you. I think that every year after a season in the NHL, when I went home in the summer, I wanted to improve. And in the off season. And I think I took that approach with my training. I always came in great shape. I always tried to get better at some point because I wasn't an overly talented guy, under talented, I would say. But, I had the work ethic. I liked working. That didn't bother me to work hard and to be competitive.
Yeah.
And then I think, as you go along in your NHL career and your plan, I took every year coming into training camp that I had to win a job.
Yeah.
And I probably did a lot of times, I had to go in there and prove myself year in, year out. And I think I just really enjoyed being a part of a team, and my job, what my job was to be part of that team. And I think that's important because my job wasn't fun, but at the same time, I got a lot out of it. I felt accomplishment out of it.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Were you the guy, did you leave home early and go and do the hockey thing when you were playing juniors? Or was
at 16. Yeah, at 16. There was a guy, John Van Horlick was the coach of Williams Lake, British Columbia. He was coaching a tier 2 junior team. That wasn't major junior, it was one step below. And me and two other guys from my hometown around where I lived, we went out there and made that team, and we all played together that year.
Wow.
He was a real impact for me in my life. I think that he took me to another level that I need to get to, and to push me. And he's really important in my life, and we're still close today. I still see
That's
him
cool.
and talk to him, and yeah, he was great for me. He really pushed me to get where I needed to go.
I bet your hockey coach your high school hockey coach loved the fact that he had 3 guys would have been on the team and they leave to go play juniors.
Well, we didn't so much in Canada. We didn't play high school hockey really. We were on teams, outside of, like, I played my hometown. So we always played for teams not in school, outside of school. It's bigger in the States. The high school hockey is a lot bigger in the States than it is in Canada.
Okay, got it. Well, good. Well, so talk about that upbringing. I mean, was that something in your mind? Did you always have the goal that I'm going to be this professional player? Like what was the grand plan maybe when you were that 16, 17-year-old, but maybe before?
Well, I think growing up in my town, very small town, my dad and my uncles were big into hockey and sports. As all Canadian kids, I would say, are, sort of into it, or it's around a lot for sure, right? Because everybody plays it. My dad and all them played hockey. My dad played till he was 80 years old. I mean, he was he was a good athlete, and my uncles, they all played, and they all helped and pushed, and they took care of us, like practicing. Like, we practiced on a pond outside of our farm. My uncle would clean the ice for us, and we'd have practices out there. And we're always on the ice skating or playing. Going to the rink late at night when nobody was out there, and playing shinny hockey. Me and my cousins and friends. So we were always playing hockey, and I don't ever think I thought about playing pro. I just like playing and being around the guys, and love the game,
Yeah. So, known as the enforcer, I think I read you are 7th all time in penalty minutes. Nice work there. Nice work there, coach, or chief, as they call you, right?
A lot of penalty minutes.
That's a lot of penalty minutes. So talk about that mental toughness. So you've got a lot of business leaders that listen to this podcast, and I always like to compare sports to business. Talk about that mindset when you went into a game, not necessarily having to worry about the penalty minutes. I don't think we need to worry about getting penalty minutes here at work, but there is a mindset, right, that goes into that I want to be aggressive, I want to play, I want to compete to win. How can you compare and contrast those two things from the hockey rink to the business room?
Yeah, I think that you go into every game knowing your role and what your job is, and for me, my mindset was not to let the team down. Like I said, you got to go out there and fight and scrap and battle and all those things. It's not fun all the time, and you're going to be banged up after games and things like that. But my mindset was not to let my teammates down, and that was really my really drove me, I think, throughout my career. I knew my job. I knew my job for my teammates and what I had to do, and for our team. And I think that I didn't want to let them down. And again, I had a love for it, and I didn't want it to end. I wanted to keep going and keep playing. And I think, that was a big part of it all for me. Motivation. I was motivated in that way.
Do you think you had self-motivation and that was kind of just in your soul, or was that something did you need outside exterior stuff to stay motivated?
Early on, I needed outside pushed.
Okay.
Like, I think, I had to be pushed to get to where I got to. And again, like my first coach in Williams Lake, John Van Horlick, he really did that for me. Like, with teaching me toughness, teaching me what I needed to do to pursue a career, helping me in those ways. I mean, we had the gloves out all the time, boxing and things like that. We had a trainer there. He was a Golden Gloves boxer, and I was actually fighting amateur fights throughout in the season that year.
Wow.
Because I became a real good boxer, and he taught me how to fight, and I ended up getting pretty good at it, and that really helped my confidence on the ice with my
That's what I was
job
going to
I had
ask.
to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's interesting. You
pretty
don't
good.
think about the fact that you got to
Oh
go
yeah,
learn to be
funny.
a better boxer.
Well, I mean, the fight's in you, it's in you, but I think that I always was trying to get better, and I think the boxing and that type of training really helped my confidence, and helped me become a better fighter for sure. Going forward, and then pursuing that NHL career, my job was to, I had to drop the gloves and do that job on the ice, and that wasn't all the job I had to do. You had to play the game, but that was a big part of my game for sure.
Yeah. So I watched it the other night. I was at a hockey game, and I watched the guy make a move, and you knew, like, he made the kind of the dirty move, but then he just kind of backed off because he knew his guy was coming in. So I didn't grow up a hockey guy, but I'm interested on that fact is, like, the closer, right? This guy's coming in. He knows. So going into it, your job is, okay, I'm going to go in here and then I'm going to start the fight. Even though the other dude started it, I'm going to finish it. Like, that was just the name of the game.
Well, back when I played, I think enforcers were around to protect teammates for sure, because the game was a lot different back then. There was some pretty brutal hits and things that went on. And as an enforcer, your job is to go and handle those things and take care of them. If somebody took advantage of one of your teammates, and to protect your players, and also, back when I played, a good fight or mixing it up could change the momentum of a game one way or another.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of it too, to understand what when you had to change the momentum of a game. So that was a big part of it all. Just going out and fighting just to fight, which I did. Don't get me wrong, because that was just you start when you get going in your career. That was you felt like you needed to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
But as your career, as it went along, I really understood how my job worked, and when to do it and when not to do it, and things like that. So you learn over time, but I think early on you want to establish yourself and, make everybody pay attention in the league that
New
you're
sheriff
here.
in town.
Yeah,
it certainly gets the crowd going, though. I mean, if you want to get the,
well,
if you
it
want to get
did.
the crowd
Yeah.
dialed in, right?
Yeah. Fans love it. I mean, obviously the game's changed, and it's changed for better. The game's way better now, but, back then, like in Philadelphia here at the old Spectrum, you getting a good scrap. People, they loved it. They loved it.
Going nuts. That's awesome. Talk about culture. I mean, culture again, boardroom to the hockey team. I mean, culture is huge, right? So how do you focus on culture? How did that play a role as a player and as a coach for you?
Yeah, culture is huge. And when I came to Philadelphia, there was a culture there already. In Philadelphia, how you have to perform and how you have to play, and what's the most important thing. That culture was there, so I got a good lesson in culture right away, coming into a team like the Flyers, who were very good, competitive.
Yep.
My first year we went to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Edmonton Oilers. That was a winning culture, and there was a certain style of play and attitude that you had to have to be part of this team. And if you didn't have it, they would move on from you. And that culture is very important. In St. Louis there, we had a great culture. Before I even got there was, Ken Hitchcock and Doug Armstrong did a great job of building that culture there of, hard work, competitive people, playing good defense and playing for the team. And so when I went there, I just instilled more of that. And that was the culture of the St. Louis Blues, blue collar town, and, kind of a workman-like blue collar team. And that's how we played and had success. We outworked other teams. we had to be more competitive. We probably weren't as talented as a lot of teams, but we were highly competitive, and we outworked teams, and we played a certain style. And when you play that certain style and you have that identity, you can have a lot of success without all the talent.
Right.
Talent only takes you so far. It's team play, team first mindset, hard work, competitive people that win championships.
Yeah. I say this a lot on the podcast, but there was a buddy of mine, his grandpa, Joe C. He told us one time we were young bucks, right, trying to make it in the financial world, and he said you got to he said success only comes before work in the dictionary. That's always stuck with me, right? To your point, you may not have been the most talented, man, but you guys worked your tails off and you made things happen, and Stanley Cup happened. So one of my questions for you too is, and I think about this from a standpoint of, I've got a lot of experienced advisors in our firm, and so I think about that compared to a hockey team. You have the best, most talented people at what they do, right? Their sport. They're in the NHL. Those are some of the best hockey players in the world. Not some. They are the best hockey players in the world. Like, how did you find it to inspire them, motivate them, coach them, lead them when they're already the best at what they do?
Yeah. Well, I think, you get talented players that come in the league and they're young guys. And I think that, it's one thing to be a very good player night in and night out, get points and things like that. But success isn't based off that. Success is based off championship. Success is based off how the team's doing, And I think when you got young guys coming in the league, it's important that, you have to grab them and mentor them and get them to be highly competitive people, hardworking people that goes along with their talent. And if you can get them and get them motivated and get them playing in the right direction that way, that's when you can have real success.
Yeah. Did you find accountability was
but
part
it's
of that?
hard. It's hard though, because players coming in, they're young, they get paid lots of money early on in their careers. They've had success, whether it's junior college. And, they have people in their corner that are always, point driven,
Yeah.
and sometimes you got to sacrifice the points for success of the team. And that's, as a coach, it's important to mentor these guys and get them to buy into that. Because when you get that buy-in that way, then you can have success as a team.
Yeah. I just watched a podcast you were on recently, and you talked about one of your old teammates on an open net, just flicked it to the corner. He said, "I'm not scoring on an empty net," right? Is that the kind of mentality you're talking about?
Well, not so much that. I mean, if you got an empty net and you're going to seal the game, you should. But that's that guy was Ally Afraid. He was quite a character I played with in Washington. So
yeah. So how much did accountability play a part in that when you're talking about to those players, motivate them, inspire them? Was accountability there? And if so, how did you handle that?
Yeah, accountability is important for sure. And it's important that the team holds each other accountable probably as much as the coach or more. I think that's where leadership comes in on your hockey team, and your leaders, maybe it's 2 guys, maybe it's 4 guys, maybe it's 5. I think different teams have, a certain amount of leaders. It's important that your leaders really hold each other accountable and hold players accountable. That goes a lot farther than the coach. Now, a coach can hold a player accountable in a number of different ways: ice time, maybe scratch them from the lineup, things like that. But when your teammates are holding you accountable and holding themselves accountable, you get a lot more out of it, for sure. And that, again, it's I always put it like mentor, coach, command. The mentor part of it is the most important thing. Mentoring young players, how to become leaders, and mentor young players to learn to put the team first. That takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes some time to do that.
That's great. I'm just writing that down.
Like
Mentor, coach, command.
You can command all you want, and it's not always going to get through to players. And, commanding is, barking orders and all this stuff. It works for a little bit, but that'll go away. You need to mentor players, then coach them in the right direction, teaching them how to play the game properly and things like that. And then there's times you're going to have to command, but that should be the third one.
Yeah, I like that. Talk about analytics in sports. I mean, again, it's hockey, it's football, it's baseball. I was watching, I don't know if you watched your Philadelphia Eagles there the other night, 4th and 5, right?
Yeah.
They say, analytics say go for it. And it's like, why not put 3 points on the board? So I don't know. I watch that stuff. It frustrates me. But from you, have been at the highest level, what do you see analytics doing in hockey and other sports? And do you like it?
Yeah, I know it's important. Yeah, I like it to a certain point. It's not everything.
Yeah.
I think you can look at teams in the NHL right now. They probably don't have the best analytics in a lot of areas, but I'm not going to name teams, but I can tell you there's some teams at the top of the leaderboard right now. Their analytics aren't great in a lot of areas, but they still win, and they're still winning. They're a tool that you need to use for certain things. They are important in some aspects, but they're not everything. And I don't think you need to get tied up into them totally. But I think you need to look at them. I think there's some real good ones out there, analytic-wise, that are important. But again, sometimes they don't always match up with your team, and they don't always match up with how you're playing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just think, again, going back to that Eagles game, it's one of those things when you see they just didn't have a lot going at that time. I felt like they needed points. And again, I understand analytics. I'm in an analytical industry, but sometimes I think in sports we overdo it. And it's like sometimes you got to go off gut feeling.
100%. That's important. I think as a coach, your gut feeling is very important. And sometimes you got to look past everything and go off your gut. That's what I do too. I mean, I've done that a lot. I mean, I go off my gut more than anything. But, different sports, like I don't know, in football and baseball and those type of sports, I know that baseball is a real analytical sport now. But I don't know enough about it to really comment too much on it. I could just comment on the hockey side of things. Hockey's a fast-paced game, and you don't have time to really think too much. It's a reactionary game, and it's important that your team understands the system real well. But at the same time, you think in today's game, it's important to be really aggressive and puck pressure, skating, not thinking so much, playing the game, and within your system more than analytics.
Yeah. What when you look at your coaching career versus your playing career, so a buddy of mine, Brett Lane, is a huge hockey guy, big Blues fan, and big fan of yours. And he said he wanted to ask a question. He said, did you notice a change in your philosophy when you started to work with the younger generation of hockey players? Like, did that change over time?
I think so. I think what I tried to do is change my mindset a little bit on how we won and how we were successful for a few years that way. It was a certain style of play. And then we got different players, younger players, more talented players with the puck, better skating players. So I tried to adjust a little bit with them on how they've had success playing the game. Now it works to a certain extent, but I'm not sure that I think that I had to drag them the other way a little bit more, into what I thought how the team was going to have success. And we had a couple good years that way with it, but we didn't win. We ended up falling short. But again, I think you got to adjust as a coach to what kind of team you have and what kind of players you have.
So talk about, the circuit of success here is the name of the podcast, obviously. And so it's easy to talk about our successes. Did you have anywhere in your career, again, as a player, as a coach, or just as a human being, you had that aha moment of that failure that actually, it probably sucked in the moment, but yet when you looked at it, you learned a lot from it and you move forward?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think you failed more than you have success throughout your career, whether you're a player or a coach. I think you know you learn from your failures, and when you do fail and things don't go well, you gotta, the next day you come in, whether you're a player or a coach, and you look at things and understand what went wrong and what you got to do better.
Yeah.
That's part of it all. I think the best players in the world at any sport, they do that tremendously well, and they understand. Listen, I wasn't very good last night. This is the things I didn't do well. I look at them. I got to be better there. I got to do this better. And the coach is the same way. Okay, what could I have done better last night as a coach? What did we not do good enough or well enough? What did we got to change? Things like that. And it's okay to fail. And I think you got to realize that you're going to fail more than you're going to have success over time. And you got to learn from it. You got to try to improve, and that's all we do. I mean, I'm still trying to get better as a coach and learn from things. Right now, I'm not working, I'm watching a lot of hockey, trying to grab new ideas and things like that, and what I would do better going forward.
What would you say your daily habits are? Like no miss items for Craig Berube. If I followed you around, are there things that keep you sharp mentally, physically?
Well, I like to train. I think that's important, is getting a good workout in and training.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, Trying to take care of yourself, and with the training and eating properly, you keep yourself sharp, in my opinion.
Yep.
Again, like when I'm coaching, you're at that rink at 6:30 in the morning, and then you're getting after it with the coaches and preparing, you know, practice plans, video, and all that before the team gets there. And then for me, when I was at the rink and the players started rolling in, I would be out there. I love chatting with the players. I think communication is really important. Whether I'm calling a guy in the room to talk to him, or I'm just walking around the weight room in their lounge and talking to players and associating with them. And it's not always about hockey. It's about their life and what's going on. I think that's really important as a coach, is to have great communication. You got to let your hair down a little bit with your players, and you know, and then once we hit the ice for practice, we practiced, and then after practice again, you're just around the rink there with the players. They're having meals and things like that, so you're you know hanging out with those guys a little bit, and then the next day you're a little bit getting prepared for the next day, whether it's a game or another practice.
Yeah. Yeah, communication. I think that relationship building that's what matters, right? It's not always, like you said. It's not always about hockey. It's not always about work, man. How their family's doing, how they doing mentally.
Yeah.
That's
No,
key stuff.
relationships are huge in sports, in anything. I think relationships are really important, and your players gotta want to come and be excited about coming to the rink, and
Yeah.
be excited about practice, and be excited about getting better and trying to get better. And you know, there has to be a good relationship with your coaching staff for that to happen.
Yeah. Amen to that. So let's talk about the 2018-2019 year. You probably never get tired of talking about that. But what was the mood? What was the atmosphere? What was the locker room like when you come in, you take over the St. Louis Blues, obviously before that season,
Yeah.
but then leading into that season, what was it like?
Well, I think there was a lot of where do I fit in type of thing. And I think that we made some trades that summer, signed some new players. So there was a little bit of a role issue. Where do I fit in on this team? And everybody was trying to find their role. So we really didn't play well as a team. And then they made the coaching change. So that was the first thing I wanted to do. And I talked to the team about it, is the roles of the team and accepting your role and doing what's best for the team. And that's what I talked about, and kept talking about it, and kept talking about it. To me, that was the biggest, break in the locker room that had to be fixed. It wasn't broken; it was cracked a little bit, and we had to fix that. That was important. I think there were system things and things how we were playing the game that I wanted to change, and I slowly changed those because just changing the system right away, it's going to have players not playing. They're going to be thinking too much. You're not going to have any success. So it took a little bit of time, but I think that once we had guys buying into the roles and doing their jobs out there, the one change and was a big change that I made. I didn't feel we had an identity line, a line that was going out there every shift, night in and night out, and playing to a real identity of how the Blues need to play the game. So I grabbed Alexander Steen, who was a pretty high end player, very intelligent player, played the game properly, 200 feet, did everything right on a nightly basis. Very good communicator with everybody, great leader. And I grabbed him and I said, listen, we need an identity line. I need you to play with Ivan Barbashev and Oscar Sundquist on the line and create an identity with those guys. And, his leadership really showed something that day because this guy was, power play, number one power play guy, played on the top lines. So he was being moved down to a bottom line and probably going to lose some power play time and things like that. But he just looked at me and said, no problem, I'll get it done. And that changed the culture. It changed the mindset of everybody. When everybody saw that and everybody saw the commitment that he made to doing that, it changed a lot in our locker room.
Yeah.
And then that line going forward was an unbelievable line for us. And I mean, we don't win without that line. Wow. We don't win the Stanley Cup without them. That's how important they were. So that was a real important thing that happened for us.
So let me interrupt on that. So think about that as a leader again of an organization. I think a lot of times we go into this big meeting and we get nervous, right? We get this fear in our mind. Oh, I got to have this tough conversation. Like, what was that for you getting ready to go deliver really bad news for this guy, basically, right? So like leading up to that meeting, What was it like?
I mean, once I talk to the coaches about things and what I'm thinking and what I want to do, I ask what their opinions are first. And sometimes you're going to get, yeah, it's a good idea. Sometimes they're going to say, no, you're crazy. But again, you go off your instincts and your gut. And my gut was to do it. And listen, conversations, you're going to have tough conversations with a lot of players. Like you're going to have tough conversations throughout your life with your family and things like that too. That's something that has to be done. And for me, if it has to be done, I'm just going to go do it. And sometimes the conversations don't go very well. I've had plenty of conversations with players that, they're pretty heated and battles, but when they leave, they're okay. And I'm okay. And we move on from it. Sometimes things are said in there that aren't very comfortable and they're not nice things either. But again, you got to be a man. You got to move on from it. It's part of sports. It's part of life.
I love that. Very matter of fact. You just got to do it. You got to rip the Band-Aid off and go do it and have the big conversation.
And I think that's, I've had plenty of players reach out to me and, they just respect my honesty and they love that. And it's an honesty is for me, it's the best thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. So that 2018-19 season, you started out 15, 18, and 4. You were last in the league. You went then 30, 10, and 5 with the longest winning streak of 11 games in Blues history. What changed? What changed in the mindset on the ice?
Yeah. Well, I think we were playing some real good hockey. I took over, I think, towards the end of November at some point, and we're into December and we're playing some real good hockey, but we weren't getting enough wins to get back to where we needed to get to be competitive down the stretch. Uh, Jake Allen was one of the goalies, and he was doing good. He was doing his job, but we needed another guy. And Jordan Bennington came up and played. And I knew Benner from the minors a little bit. I coached him for a bit. Very confident person. I remember he went by me, and I hadn't played him yet. He was up practicing. I hadn't played him yet. And he came by me on the ice at the end of practice, and he looked at me and he goes, "Just so you know, I'm ready to go in and do the job whenever you want me to make the call." And I said, that's good to hear. And I played him. I played him in Philadelphia, I think, early January, like right at the beginning of January. He won the game 3-0. Played him again, won again. I think that was a big part of changing everything, is getting that other goalie in there. And down the stretch, we had a great 1-2 combination. And, Jake Allen really helped out Benner a lot, which was important. Jake Allen's a great team guy, and I think those two really had a good 1-2 combination. And, once like I said, once we got the room straightened out and started playing the game with the way I saw we needed to play it, it was hard to beat us.
Yeah. Very hard to beat you guys.
It was really hard to
That's
beat
awesome.
us.
Did you have any moments?
Adversity that
Go ahead, sorry.
I think going through adversity like we did for a while really helped us in the playoffs too, because in the playoffs you're going to lose games where maybe you shouldn't have lost and things like it. But you have to understand you're going to play again right away, and you got to move on from that loss or the win and get focused on the next game.
Yeah, short-term memory.
Yeah.
Any locker room moments or any kind of the quote unquote speeches, whether it's from you or a player that really stepped up, toward in the season or in the playoffs, they said, okay, that was a big one. We needed that shot in the arm right there.
Yeah, I had a meeting one time that got pretty heated. It got pretty heated in the room. Really went after the team. I was visibly very upset and pissed off. I think it put a jolt to our team pretty good, and I think that that was a big moment in things that changed. Again, I think that Alex Pietrangelo, our captain, really took a hold of the team. I can't really give you when exactly he did that, but he really started to grab a hold of the room, along with Alexander Steen, and handle things in the locker room. And it wasn't always me coming in there and handle them. Mm-hmm. And those guys took over the room, and they handled things that need to be handled. That's important.
Huge.
Anytime you can get that, that goes a long way. Because I would remember a couple of times I'm walking down there, and Petro, I call him Petro, Alex Pietrangelo, I call him Petro. He just said, "I got the room," because he knew, I was coming down there. And it's the same thing on the bench with Alex Steen. He heard me getting, worked up about something or at a player, and he just turned around. I got it, and that's what you need.
That's huge. It's huge for the culture.
Huge for the culture.
Yeah,
and it's important, very important.
Yeah. Let's talk about Game 7, playing the Boston Bruins. Big game, obviously. Thank you, Captain Obvious. But walk us through that day, that morning, that game.
Yeah.
Let's not go to the end yet, but let's just talk kind of that morning, that day. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about Game 6 first of all. So
Okay.
We beat them in Game 5. We were up, and we could close the game out in Game 6 at home. And I drove to the rink. I got there pretty early, or at a little after 3 or something. And I mean, the people outside the building and the excitement and everything, I kind of knew already, like, that this is going to be a tough game for us, because there was a lot of expectations on the players and the team to win tonight. Everybody's expecting you to win. And, it makes it a lot tougher. And I don't know if it was everybody, but probably 90% of the players have never been in this situation,
Yeah.
never been there. And so we went out in that game and we kind of stumbled early and took some penalties and we got scored on and the game fell apart on us. It was almost like it was weird because there was a little bit of sense of relief on the players. And the next day rolled around, the mood was really good. We get to the morning skate, game 7. I mean, we were loose as you could get out there. I mean, the practice was great. Guys were talking and really, really excited about the game tonight, It was a totally different mindset. And so I felt pretty good about things going into game 7. It's going to be a tough game for sure. They're at home. They're going to come out hard right away. We all know that.
Right.
But again, we bent a little bit early on, but we didn't break. Benner made some real good saves for us on a penalty kill. They had a power play. There was one penalty in the game. We got the penalty in the first period, and he made a couple real key saves. We went down and scored the first goal. Then we got the second goal, and we were pretty solid after that. I'll tell you what, we didn't give up much. We played a really good game.
So talk about that clock, right? You see that clock running, you're up. At what point was it the final buzzer? At what point did you start to think, holy
for
crap,
me, it was the final buzzer.
Happen?
Yeah, I was, you never think it's over. I don't anyhow,
Oh, right.
So I'm grinding back there, and guys are kind of getting a little chuckle out of me because I think we were up 4-1. There's like 2 minutes to go, and I'm barking and stuff, and I'm pretty intense still.
Like, come on, coach.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want to take anything for granted, and kind of wanted to make sure guys were focused still and not thinking about the end.
Yeah.
But when that final buzzer goes, it's a real sense of accomplishment for your players, for me, more than anything, because they're the guys that go out and do it. They play the game. It's all about them, in my opinion. Yeah, you coach them and you try to direct them the right way and do those things. But I felt a real pride for the players, proud of the players, how they performed. That was the biggest feeling for me that I got after the buzzer went.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How much of the St. Louis, the pride, the love of the Blues, the LGB, like all that stuff, man, the weight of the city on your shoulders, as they say, right? But like seeing that parade, seeing the love for the St. Louis Blues, I mean, what was that like for you as the leader? Obviously for those guys, those players, but also for a city.
Yeah, it felt great. I mean, St. Louis is a great sports town. The people are fantastic. The fan base is fantastic, both for the Blues and the Cardinals. They love their sports as much as any place I've been. And that parade was a lot of fun. I mean, just to see the crowd and how excited everybody was. And again, it's a great feeling. It's a great feeling to be on that stage and, the cup and everything. And, I just felt great for the city, to be honest with you. Like, they were waiting a long time for this, and they finally got it. And it never ends. It never ends, to be honest with you. I mean, this year got people coming up to you and talking about that year and everything, and winning the cup, and it's like I said, it's a great town. The people are awesome.
Yeah. Well, you'll be talking about that the rest of your life, So the real question is, you wonder how many beers were consumed that day between the team and all of you guys.
Too many. There was a lot.
How'd you feel the next day, right?
There was a lot. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a great time. Really good. Awesome.
What did you do with the cup? The day you got to keep it,
Yeah, I spent in St. Louis. I spent a couple days with the coaches with the cup. We took it to a couple spots, had a real good time with it. I think that's really important for me anyhow, because you're there every day with those guys. You go through a lot. I love my coaches, and I thought it was important to spend a couple days with the cup doing that. And then I brought the cup to my hometown,
Nice.
which was a lot of fun. I brought it to the arena, the hockey rink there, and I just, anybody that wanted to come and take a picture with the cup and things like that, they could. And we did that for a couple hours. And then I had a party at our farm where I grew up with all my cousins and uncles and
Ugh.
everybody. It's about 200 people. We celebrated that day with the cup, and it was a lot of fun. Seeing my dad and my uncles hold that cup and everything, they love hockey, boy. They love it. So that was a lot of fun, And then I got a chance to bring the cup to Philly too, which was great. And, got together with a bunch of people here and celebrated with the cup here in Philly.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, last
Yeah.
question for you, man. When you look back at your journey you've had, and it's been an amazing journey, like I said, 17 seasons, a Stanley Cup champ as a coach. When you look back, what are you most proud of?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, obviously, winning the Stanley Cup is that's as a player and a coach and being involved in a game. That's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like every year you come into a season, whether you're a player or a coach, that's the goal for the most part, is to try to win. So winning that cup is obviously a huge thrill and great accomplishment by everybody that was involved in that winning season. But, I think just for me, probably most proud of never taking my foot off the gas. Like like I said, as a player, I went into every summer and trained and thought I had to go prove myself again. And I really pushed myself. And as a coach, I do the same thing. I'm not satisfied, I guess. I want to keep going. I want to win again.
Yep.
I want to get involved with another team that's has a great culture and going in the right direction and wants to do the right things and be part of that. I haven't been out that long and I already miss it. I love that. I love that grind every day.
Yeah.
I think, that's for me is the greatest accomplishment, is just the motivation to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm motivated that way, and I don't know when it'll go away, but right now it's not gone away.
There's a lot of gas left in the tank for those people
A
listening.
lot of gas.
You got a guy. I got a guy. I can already tell, man. He's going to go do great things, and I know the city of St. Louis will be rooting you on, man, no matter where you're at. And I know great things will continue to happen for you. You're a good dude, and I really appreciate you being on the Circuit of Success.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And out to St. Louis fans and people, I love you, man. You guys are great. I love it.